All right, and I think we're live. Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. So welcome back to another one of these streams on refuting Islam. It's a series that I've kept going for a while on. I haven't really done many videos on any other topics besides this one. So hopefully I finish up on a few more videos on this playlist that I'm creating, and then I'll get into all the other presentations that I've prepared. So for this one, this is a video that I've already promised to complete, which is going over the Hadith and the unreliability of the Hadith. We're going to have a critical examination of its history, methodology, and internal inconsistencies. We'll look into a lot of other things as well. So just to get started here, I do have all my references open. So I will be alternating to whenever I make a citation or I quote something, I will have the actual page open so we can analyze it together. So it's not just something I'm getting out of thin air. It's going to be there for you to see as I critique it. So the Hadith corpus stands at a central pillar in both Sunni and Shia Islam, right? So this isn't something that's going to be differentiated by that schism or something that we're going to have different views on. Well, there are different views, but it's accepted by both. So this I guess we can say this video can be for both Sunnis and Shias. Although there is going to be a lot more, or there's going to be a lot less arguments when it comes to the Shia position because of how they, because of which hadiths they accept and how they accept them and things like that. So on a video that I made, I think yesterday or the day before. I think it's the day before yesterday. Anyways, so beyond doubt theology, I watched his content for a little bit, and he said, I'm just going to quote him from what he says right here. He said, to make criticism of this hadith. So the video I made was critiquing Sunan Abu Dawud for I forgot the specific verse, but yeah, something like that. And it was on the Torah and the Jews and how they came to Muhammad for judgment, and he used the Torah and said that I believe in you, the one who believes you. And I spoke about how Hajjaj was criticized, or was the primary criticism for why the hadith is not accepted. And his response was, quote, to make criticism of this hadith is not Hajjaj. I guess he's trying to say main. So the main criticism of this hadith is not Hajjaj. You've never even looked at a single takrit for this hadith. The main issue is the sadhuth, i.e. the singular nature of this specific wording, while the other chains for it don't include the addition of the pillow and the confirmation. The secondary issue is the inclusion of Hisham ibn Sa'd in the chain, who is considered weak and problematic by many early hadith scholars. The fact that you overlooked these points and mentioned Hajjaj just shows how there really is a vast difference between even the least knowledgeable Muslim in hadith sciences and a part-time critic who spent probably hours preparing this video. So I did acknowledge to him that I was a part-time critic that did videos like this. So there's one thing that he's right about. And then I also went ahead and I responded to his claim. So I'll just go ahead and read what my comment said in response to him. So I might as well just do it now. I said, quote, dude, what are you on about? Shadhu occurs when a credible, or no, sadhud, I apologize. Sadhud only occurs when a credible narrator contradicts a stronger transmission, but the absence of the pillow and confirmation, quote, pillow and confirmation, in other chains does not create a contradiction, only a variation. Ibn Hajar affirms that Zayd min al-Thiqwa is accepted unless it contradicts stronger narration, so it's an addition from a trustworthy narrator, which is not the case here. So hadiths often have minor variations in phraseology, yet they remain sahih. So we can use Bukhari 1 as an example on intention. Hisham's weakness is secondary to my video. The reliability of the main transmitter takes precedence because they dictate whether the transmission is even worth examining further. Hajjaj is problematic due to his tadlis, or concealment of sources, and his irsal, omission of links. Scholars like Ahmed, Abu Dawud, and Ibn Ma'in criticized him for this. If the foundation of the insad, Hajjaj, is compromised, then the secondary narrators, Hisham, are irrelevant. Even if Hisham were weak, his role as a supporting narrator does not impact the primary issue, which is whether the hadith is valid at the level of its core transmission. Since Hajjaj himself is unreliable, we don't even need to reach Hisham's reliability in order to dismiss the hadith. You're assuming that I overlooked Hisham. In reality, I started with Hajjaj because if the foundation is weak, the structure collapses. This is a fundamental rule in hadith criticism. If you insist on Hisham, then you're avoiding the real issue and deflecting from the fact that the hadith is already flawed at its root. Hisham is also not outright weak. Ibn Mayn, and I quote, says, not problematic. Ibn Habban included him in the Thiqat. Al-Tamardi and Abu Dawood uses reports showing he isn't abandoned. Since weak narrators can be used in supporting chains, rejecting the hadith outright is unjustified. You cherry pick Sadhud and Hisham's weaknesses while ignoring the hadith science principle that slight wording variations are normal. If you apply this logic consistently, you must reject many Sahih hadiths with minor differences, exposing your double standard. This is the funniest comment I've seen here so far, and it makes it so much better that it was an educated response rather than a tu quoque about, quote, ooh, what about your Bible? So I really appreciate that. You did get something right, though I am a part-time critic. So that's exactly what I said in response to him. But yeah, we'll go a lot. So this video was more or less inspired by Beyond Doubt Theology's comments, so I could kind of just expand as much as possible on the history of the hadith and why it's unreliable altogether. The point of that video was, now it's going to seem like I'm contradicting myself, but the point of that video was just to show the inconsistency in saying that how they don't reject other hadiths that where tadlis is involved. But when it comes to Hajjaj, because this verse specifically helps with the confirmation of the Torah and showing that it's preserved, they don't want it there. So it's going to have a weaker grade. That was the point of that video. So anyways, let's go ahead and start with the first point, which is the fabrication of the hadith and historical manipulation. So before that, again, as I've already said, the hadith corpus stands as a central pillar for both Sunni and Shia Islam. So it serves as an essential source for Islamic law or fiqh, theology, aqidah, and the early history of Islam. Alongside the Quran, hadith are treated as the primary sources of the Prophet Muhammad's words and actions. However, a detailed examination of the history, transmission, and methodology, along with some textual inconsistencies within the hadiths, reveals there are severe epistemological challenges. So we're going to deal with a lot of epistemology here now, and we'll get to that in the coming slides. So these issues will significantly undermine the reliability of the hadith as historical sources. Key term, historical source. This critical study will explore the fabrication of the hadith, flaws in the isnad or chain of narration. I've kind of covered that in the last video as well. So just kind of in that system, and contradictions both within the hadith texts themselves, between the hadith and the Quran. So let's go ahead with the first point. So 1.1, I'm going to cover the political instrumentalization of hadith. So just to give a little bit of context, the creation and spread of hadith was not always purely religious or scholarly endeavors. So from the earliest periods of Islam, hadith were utilized as powerful tools for political legitimization, particularly during the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates. So the political manipulation of hadiths is well documented, and it raises questions about their authenticity. So I'm going to go ahead and share the slide here, or the tab here, where it kind of just covers that a little bit. So the Umayyad and Abbasid caliphates were two dynasties that ruled the Muslim empire. The Abbasids overthrew the Umayyads in 750 CE. The Umayyads ruled over a small territory. Then the Abbasids, there's also the map here. I think I have the map over on the slides as well. And it gives a little bit of history here if you want to stop. Once the video is uploaded, if you want to stop here and just read a bit more on these, you can. But yeah, so that's that. And then I also have the map back on the slide. There we go. So the Umayyad Empire was around here. The Abbasid Caliphate had a larger area in terms of dry mass and all that. So I have the map included here. Let's go back to the first slide in order to finish that. So So because of these caliphites, the political manipulation of hadiths is well documented. And so it was going to raise questions about their authenticity. So we have the pro-Umayyad fabrication, so the Umayyad dynasty from 661 to 750 CE. They sought to legitimize their rule, which was seen as an extension of the legitimacy of the Prophet Muhammad's family. So, to counter the claims of the Prophet's close relatives, particularly those advocating for the Ahl al Bayat, the Prophet's family, the Umayyads spread hadith that portrayed Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan and his family as a highly favorable light. So, one of the fabricated hadiths portrayed Muawiyah as a scribe of revelation, an honor that was reserved for a select few companions of the Prophet. So this was it was kind of like a strategic move to strengthen the Umayyads' political legitimacy and weaken the influence of the Prophet's family. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing names wrong because I don't speak Arabic fluently or much at all. And then we have, so once we finish the pro-Umayyad fabrications, then we have the pro-Abbasid fabrication. So the Abbasid dynasty, which came to power after the Umayyads, and we have the map here, and I've already said that they overthrew the Umayyad dynasty. So once they came into power, what kind of happened was, so what they did a similar thing, right? After the Umayyads, they manipulated hadiths to support their claim to the caliphate. In particular, hadiths were fabricated to emphasize the superiority of the Prophet's family, or al-bayat. So the Abbasids utilized this rhetoric to position themselves as rightful rulers and protectors of the Prophet's bloodline. We also have the sectarian fabrications, so the Sunni Shia divide. Like I said, this video can be for both, but it's going to have it doesn't. It follows that they're going to be fabrication because of the sects. So the Sunni Shia divide contributed heavily to the creation of fabricated hadith. Both sects produced narratives that served their theological and political interests, further compromising the historical authenticity of the hadiths. So the Sunni hadith corpus includes narratives praising the companions of the Prophet, such as Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, while downplaying the role of Ali. And then conversely, the Shia hadith corpus focuses on the virtues of Ali and his descendants, positioning them as the rightful leaders of the Muslim community. And that's kind of why there's so much emphasis on Ali when you go to the Shia position. If you ever have actually kind of dabbled in that. So to wrap up on that, let's go to the next point I want to make. So let's go over to 1.2, which is fabrication by religious scholars. So the scholars or religious scholars themselves were complicit in the fabrication of hadith. So this was not always motivated by political ambition, but rather by a desire to propagate moral or theological messages. So, for example, Abu Ismail al-Sulami, a noted scholar, admitted that he and others fabricated hadith to attract people to righteousness. He said, and I quote, "We fabricated hadith to attract people to righteousness." So this is a telling statement that reveals the extent to which hadith were used as moral tools rather than historical records. We also have Ibn al-Jawazi, one of the most prominent hadith scholars, compiled a book entitled Kitab al-Buduat, which listed thousands of forged hadith. These hadiths were often fabricated to support particular theological or moral positions, even when they had lacked verifiable chains of transmission. So now that we've kind of finished on that, let's go over to the Isnad system. So a fundamentally flawed methodology. So let's just talk a little bit about the concept of Isnad and its limitations as far as it goes concerning the Hadith. So the Isnad system, which was developed to authenticate the transmission of Hadiths, it already presents serious epistemological and methodological flaws. So I've already said we're going to talk a lot about epistemology in this video. So although the system was designed to establish the chain of narration, it fails to provide adequate guarantees for the reliability of the reports. So we have, for example, a huge reliance on oral transmission. So the hadiths were transmitted orally for over 2 centuries, which made them highly susceptible to distortion and corruption. In a largely illiterate society, keyword illiterate, oral transmission was subject to errors, omissions, and alterations. So, this long period of oral transmission has to have created a foundation for historical inaccuracy, especially considering that these reports were passed down through multiple generations. I have a video on the preservation of the Quran where I kind of touch up on the hadith. I didn't do much on that. I said I was going to make a separate video for that, and this is the video. But yeah, and so considering that, these reports were never passed down through multiple generations, right? We also and the isnad system itself is a later invention. So the systematic methodology of isnad, which was intended to verify the authenticity of hadith by examining the reliability of each narrator in the chain, only became standard practice in the late 8th century. So this was centuries after many hadiths had already been widely circulated, allowing for the early period of hadith transmission to be filled with fabrications and distortions that were later retroactively rationalized by scholars. We also have a huge use of circular verification, which is a key problem in the isnad system. It was the subjective criteria employed by early hadith scholars like Bukhari and Muslim. So we find many of this in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. These scholars selected hadiths based on their own judgment, often using questionable standards to access the reliability of narrators. As a result, many hadiths were then deemed authentic and were selected based on a bias toward preserving the traditions of certain sects or political groups. Okay, I think I kind of made a mistake. 1.2. I think it's supposed to be 2.2. Oh yeah, I said 1.2, so that's a mistake. Just ignore that. So to kind of go over to 2.2, the weakness of the individual narrators. So even with the so-called sahih or authentic collections, many of the narrators are known to have had questionable practices, further compromising the reliability of the hadith corpus. So of course, I'm going to have a primary guy that I've already listed in the last video, which is Hajjaj ibn Athara. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So this narrator was notorious for engaging in tadlis, so the concealment of sources, that's what it means, and irsal, the omission of links of the chain of narration. This is the response that I gave to Beyond Doubt Theology. So both of which cast doubt on his credibility as a transmitter of hadith. And then Hisham is also the one that we talked about with Beyond Doubt Theology when I responded to him. So this narrator was declared weak by prominent early scholars such as Ahmed ibn Hanbal and Ibn Ma'in, despite that his reports appear in major hadith collections like Sahih Muslim and Sahih al-Bukhari. We also have Ibn Ishaq. So although he's considered a key source for early biographical accounts of the Prophet Muhammad, his hadiths are largely dismissed due to his weak transmission practices. His works were often modified and edited long after the events they describe. So that's going to raise a lot of questions about their historical reliability. Let's go on to the third point. So the internal contradictions and inconsistencies within the hadith corpus further undermines its authenticity. So right here, I already have all the sources open, so we're going to switch to those sources to read them out, and I can share them with you so you can follow along together. So in many cases, right, so the hadith will directly contradict the teachings of the Quran. So these contradictions raise serious questions about the veracity of the hadith as a source for religious law and practice. So there's three that I want to list out specifically. I don't know if I wrote those down. Okay, I think I didn't. Okay, I didn't. So I'll just have to switch over and talk about them one by one. So the first one is the inheritance law. So let's go over to Surah 4:11. I already have it open. So here we go. Here's Surah 4:11. So the first internal contradiction between the Quran and the Hadith, or internal inconsistency, would be the inheritance law. So here it says, Allah commands you regarding your children. There's the verse right there. Allah commands you regarding your children, the share of the male will be twice that of the female. If you leave only two or more females, their share is two-thirds of the estate. But if there is only one female, their share will be one half. Each parent is entitled to one-sixth if you leave offspring. But if you are childless and your parents are the only heirs, then your mother will receive one-third. But if you leave siblings, then your mother will receive one-sixth. After the fulfillment of bequests and debts, be fair to your parents and children, as you do not fully know who is more beneficial to you. This is an obligation from Allah. Surely Allah is all-knowing and all-wise. So that's what we have in the Quran. So that outlines specific inheritance laws. But then when we go to the Hadith, so we have Bukhari open here. Bukhari, this is Bukhari 6725. So here it says, Fatima and Al-Abbas came to Abu Bakr seeking their share from the property of Allah's Messenger. And at that time, they were asking for their land at Fadak and their share from Khaybar. Abu Bakr said to them, I have heard from Allah's Messenger saying, our property cannot be inherited, and whatever we leave is to be spent in charity. But the family of Muhammad may take their provisions from this property. Abu Bakr added, by Allah, I will not leave the procedure I saw Allah's Messenger following during his lifetime concerning this property. Therefore, Fatima left Abu Bakr and did not speak to him till she died. So here we have back into the Quran in this surah, or in this ayah of this surah, it outlines the specific inheritance laws. But in the Hadith, it asserts that a prophet does not leave inheritance. So this directly contradicts the Quranic teachings and demonstrates the fabricated nature of the Hadith. And so, because even in the Muslim paradigm, this is one way to know if a Hadith is not authentic, is if it directly contradicts the Quran. The second example I have here is going to be the punishment for apostasy. So here's the Quranic verse, which is 256, Surah 256, which is Surah Al-Baqarah. Here it says, let there be no compulsion in religion. Let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So whoever renounces false gods and believes in Allah certainly grasps the firmest. Unfailing handhold, and Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Remember, no compulsion in religion. Now let's go over to what the Hadith says. It says, some atheists were brought to Ali, and he burnt them. Whoa. Okay. The news of this event reached Ibn Abbas, who said, if I had been in this place, I would not have burned them, as Allah's Messenger forbade it, saying, do not punish anybody with Allah's punishment. I would have killed them according to the settlement of Allah's Messenger. Whoever changed his Islamic religion, then kill him. Are we kind of seeing the pattern here? So there's no compulsion in religion, yet in this hadith, it mandates the execution of apostates. This stark contradiction between the Quran and Hadith is going to call into question the authenticity of the latter. And then the last one is just a really funny one. I don't know if anyone watching this has already heard of it. It's about Shaitan sleeping in noses. So Satan's going to sleep in your nose. It's kind of the message here, or he does sleep in your nose. So it's the Hadith is Sahih Muslim 351, and then it's kind of expanded on Bukhari. So let me just go straight to the Bukhari one. So this is Sahih al-Bukhari, and what it says, it's 33295. So what it says is, the Prophet said, if any one of you rouses from sleep and performs an ablution, he should wash his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out thrice, because Satan or Shaitan has stayed in the upper part of his nose all night. Yeah, so it's kind of quite straightforward. It's claiming that Shaitan sleeps in people's noses. So, I mean, that statement is not only theologically diabolical or devious, but also scientifically absurd. So, such claims are going to raise doubts about. I mean, come on. What does this even? I don't know. I don't got much to say about this, but yeah, that's that. Let's go over to 3.2. So let's go to the contradictions within the Hadith corpus. Let me go back to the slide. I just forgot that's not there. Okay. So I have three more examples, right? So we have other contradictions that can't be reconciled even by the most lenient standards of Hadith criticism. Most of which would be, or the best three would be the age of Aisha at marriage. So let's go to this Hadith. So this is Sahih al-Bukhari 5133. So it says here that the Prophet married her, Aisha, when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and then she remained with him for 9 years, i.e., till his death. So this claims that Aisha was 6 years old when she married Muhammad, while other historical sources, including Ibn Hisham's Sirah, suggest that she was older. And this is an argument that Muslims will use. Oh, she was 19, or she was this, she was that. And they're getting these from other sources like Ibn Hisham's Sirah. So this already exposes significant historical inconsistencies when it comes to the age of Aisha. And that's why Muslims have a hard time trying to defend her age and all the pedophilia accusations that come to Muhammad. The second one is the prayer prohibition. So here, let's go over to Sahih al-Bukhari 581. It says here, the Prophet forbade praying after the Fajr prayer till the sun rises and the Asr prayer till the sun sets, narrated Ibn Abbas. Some people told me the same narrations above. So there's that. And then in another hadith, it says, "O Allah, bless us in your son and mud and shower with its blessings, two other blessings. Multiply blessings showered upon it." So that's Sahih Muslim 137 4b. All right. Sorry for that. Give me a second there. It says here, "Oh Allah, bless us in our saw and mud and shower with its blessings. Two other blessings, multiply blessings showered upon it." So in the first hadith, it asserts that prayer is forbidden after the Sar prayer, while in this one, Muslim 1374, it shows that the Prophet himself praying at this time, and it reveals irreconcilable contradictions. My favorite one is going to be the last words of the Prophet. So here, let me go ahead and share that. So this is in Sahih al-Bukhari 4463. Here it says, when the Prophet was healthy, he used to say, "No soul of a prophet is captured till he is shown his place in paradise. And then he is given the option. When death approached him while his head was on my thigh, he became unconscious and then recovered his consciousness. He then looked at the ceiling of the house and said, 'O Allah, with the highest companions,' I said to myself, 'hence he is not going to choose us.' Then I realized that he had said what he had said was the application of the narration which he used to mention to us when he was healthy. The last word he spoke was, 'O Allah, with the highest companion.'" So that's what it says here in Sahih al-Bukhari 4463. Now let's go ahead and share this tab. Give me a second here while I correct it on the slide. All right, so what it says here is Thursday, and then he said, "What is this Thursday?" He then wept so much tears that his tears moistened the pebbles. I said, "Ibn Abbas, what is significant about Thursday?" He, Ibn Abbas, said, "The illness of Allah's Messenger took a serious turn on this day." And he said, "Come to me so that I should write for you a document that you may not go astray from me, or go astray after me, excuse me." They, the companions around him, disputed, and it was not meet, and it is not meet to dispute in the presence of the apostle. They said, "How is Allah's apostle? Has he lost his consciousness? Try to learn from him this point." He, the Holy Prophet, said, "Leave me. I am better in the state than the one in which you are engaged. I make a will about three things: turn out the polytheists from the territory of Arabia, show hospitality to the foreign delegations as I used to show them hospitality." He, the narrator, said, he, Ibn Abbas, kept silent on the third point. Or he, the narrator, said, "But I forgot that." This hadith was mentioned through another change. But I forgot that. Let's have that in mind as well. But the point is, that's not the point of this hadith. The point is that the first hadith, or some hadith, claim that the Prophet's last words were about prayer. as shown in Bukhari 4463. While the other one, or the one we just read, is stating that something about expelling polytheists. So this disparity or discrepancy indicates something narrative. It's going to indicate competing narratives and theological biases rather than a reliable historical account. So that's all that we have for the three for the third one, or the third point. So to the shadud anomaly and the weakening of hadith. So specifically 4.1, the problem of singular narrations, or ahad hadith. So hadith is considered shadih, or anomalous, if it differs significantly from stronger reports, such as or these such hadiths often exhibit signs of later interpolation, undermining the reliability. So an example that I love using is going to be Abu Dawood. So let's go ahead and open Abu Dawood here. So this is the one I like using. So I will go ahead and read that. But before I do, so this hadith is discussing the Jews and the Torah. It's the video that I made before this one, called, I'll have the video linked. The video I made was the dishonest method of grading hadith, which was specifically about this, the problem of singular narrations, or hadith. So it discusses the Jews and the Torah, and it's weakened not only by the questionable nature of Hajjaj ibn Artha's narration, but also by the singular wording, or shadhut, that appears to be a later addition. So rather than part of the original tradition. So let me go ahead and read it. So a group of Jews came and invited the messenger of Allah to Kuf. He then visited them in their school. They said, Abdul Qasim, one of our men, has committed fornication with a woman, so pronounced judgment upon them. They placed a cushion for the messenger of Allah, who sat on it, and said, bring the Torah. It was then brought. He then withdrew the cushion from beneath and placed the Torah on it, saying, I believed in thee and in him who revealed thee. He then said, bring me the one who is learned among you. Then a young man was brought. The transmitter then mentioned the rest of the tradition of stoning, similar to the one transmitted by Malik from Naif number 4434. So, as I've already said, it's weakened also by the singular wording of the shadhut that appears to be a later addition rather than part of the original tradition, which is kind of what Beyond Doubt Theology was saying when responding to me. So to kind of just wrap up on the general idea of why I would say that the hadith is unreliable. Besides the overwhelming evidence of political fabrication, methodological flaws, and the internal contradictions, the hadith corpus cannot be relied upon as historically accurate source, or a historically accurate source. Because the isnad system, which was retroactively applied to already corrupted oral traditions, does not provide sufficient guarantees of authenticity. Furthermore, the blatant contradictions between hadiths and between hadith and the Quran, coupled with the role of sectarian and political motivations in the creation of hadith, is going to reveal the extent to which the hadith corpus was shaped by factors other than the faithful transmission of the Prophet's words and deeds. So if Muslims were to apply the principles of hadith criticism consistently and without bias, they would be forced to admit that the vast majority of hadiths, including those contained in the so-called Sahih collections of Bukhari and Muslim, are completely unreliable. The honest conclusion is that hadiths represent a layer or a later politically manipulated construct, not an authentic transmission of the Prophet Muhammad teachings. And that's kind of just wraps up the general reasons why I wouldn't say that hadiths are reliable. We could go much further, but this should be enough as a general construct. Now let's go straight into the case study of Sahih Muslim, because it's really interesting. So we can look at the methodological differences of Sahih Muslim, or deficiencies, I apologize, of Sahih Muslim. So why I wanted to expand on this, I could have done Sahih al-Bukhari, but I think Sahih Muslim is a lot better because I could make citations directly. So The reliability of Sahih Muslim, which is the second most authoritative collection of hadith in Sunni Islam after Sahih Bukhari, uh, we have to critically analyze several key aspects, including the methodology of its compilation, its theological implications, historical inconsistencies, and the textual issues inherent in its content. Given the significance of Sahih Muslim as a cornerstone of Islamic tradition, our thorough academic critique requires addressing not only its context, but also the broader theological, historical, and epistemological foundations on which its reliability is built. So let's go ahead to the first point that I have here. I have it on the slide, which is 1.1, the problem of selective authentication. Now, before I get into that, let me go ahead and mark a few things here on the slide. All right, so let's go. So we have the problem of selective authentication, which is something I've already kind of talked about earlier on in the video. So Sahih Muslim, like other major hadith collections, was compiled using a methodology based on isnad, or chain of transmission. The matan, or text of narration, however, these methods, while they might offer an appearance of objectivity, are fraught with issues. Sahih Muslim is particularly problematic in its approach to authentication, as it selectively admits hadith based on the subjective judgment of the compiler. So Imam Muslim, Ibn al-Hajjaj, who despite his scholarly standing, made decisions influenced by the intellectual and political environment of his time. So the Isnad system itself, which relies on the integrity of narrators, faces a fundamental issue in its assumptions. Imam Muslim was selective in his acceptance of narrators, but his criteria were inconsistent, and that's the argument that I'm positing this whole time, and not always applied with uniform rigor. So Muslims' reliance on narrators who themselves may have been unreliable, or those reports were not corroborated by other chains, further diminishes the reliability of his compilation. The reliance on such potentially unreliable narrators whose testimonies were subject to human error, memory lapses, or deliberate manipulation ultimately undermines the authenticity of the hadith corpus. Go on to my second point, which is 1.2, the emergence of hadith fabrication during the Muslim era. So this is something I want to talk about a lot. So in the 9th century, at the time of Sahih Muslim's compilation, the political and theological climate was volatile. So I've already discussed the Abbasid Caliphate, which was from 750 to 1258. So they were in power, and a time when factions with divergent political and religious views were actively engaged in propagating and manipulating hadith to serve particular interests. The proliferation of fabricated hadiths, especially to legitimize political and doctrinal positions, compromised the credibility of many reports. There was a high usage of political instrumentalization of hadiths, which began very early in Islamic history. So the Umayyads and Abbasids both relied on the fabrication of hadiths to support their rule. That often created reports that cast their reigns in a favorable light. For instance, we have reports emphasizing the legitimacy, I apologize, for certain rulers or their families, which were spread to reinforce political power. So these fabrications were introduced into the hadith corpus during the very era in which Sahih Muslim was compiled. So this would then result in the inclusion of politically motivated narrations in what was supposed to be an objective collection. We then move on to the problems with the Isnad system. So the oral transmission and memory issues. The Isnad system, which is the backbone of the authentication process in hadith science, itself faced inherent flaws. So oral transmission, which persisted for several centuries before the establishment of a written hadith corpus, is prone to corruption. So narrators could intentionally or unintentionally misinterpret or alter the content of hadiths during the transmission process, either by introducing personal biases or failing to accurately recall the original words of the Prophet Muhammad. Such discrepancies naturally result in variations in hadith texts, which undermine their reliability. Moreover, we have later development of the Isnad system in the 8th and 9th centuries, which is very long after the purported events in the Hadith, which calls into question the ability of Hadith compilers to verify the authenticity of their sources, as Hadith were transmitted orally for up to 200 years. The absence of a standardized methodology to preserve and cross-check these narrations has the risk of corruption. So Sahih Muslim, despite its status as Sahih, or so-called Sahih authentic, or an authentic collection, it therefore itself relies on a methodology that is inherently flawed and susceptible to both intentional and unintentional inaccuracies. To move on, we have trying to get through these as fast as possible because I'm still on that time limit on YouTube to kind of just speed up my videos so we don't take too long and I can get everything out before people start getting bored. We have the thematic and doctrinal contradictions. So Sahih Muslim contains numerous reports that are contradictory to each other or the Quran itself. So the contradictions are so profound that they not only challenge the textual consistency of the Hadith corpus, but also create a theological dilemma within Islamic thought. For example, we can consider the narration Sahih Muslim that I've already brought up when I was talking about the general refutation when it comes to the Hadith, which is the inheritance, for example, in Sahih Muslim 67:25, that a prophet doesn't leave inheritance. And then the Quran or the Surah 4:11 clearly prescribes inheritance laws for the heirs of a prophet, which directly contradict the Hadith. So those contradictions just highlights the theological and jurisprudential tensions between Hadith and Quran teachings, and it just suggests either the Hadith is an interpolation or that the understanding of the inheritance laws in Islam is not as clear-cut as the Quran suggests. So similarly, the Hadith in Sahih Muslim 351, or the one I showed in Bukhari because it's a lot more detailed or explicit, that claims that Satan sleeps in people's noses, is a prime example of the absurdity found in certain narrations. So such scientifically unsubstantiated claims are going to undermine the credibility of Sahih Muslim, whether you like it or not. So as a reliable record of the Prophet's teachings, particularly when juxtaposed with the rational and ethical framework in which Islam is traditionally grounded. I also want to talk about the contradictions between hadiths. I've already listed a few earlier, but we have it's plagued with internal contradictions. It's going to cast doubt on its consistency for narratives. The example I've already gave earlier were reports of Aisha married to the Prophet at age 6, but then Ibn Hisham's Sirah reports a different age. So who knows? And then we have, of course, the prayers. I've already listed this in Bukhari 581, and then Sahih Muslim 1374 contradicts, which depicts the Prophet praying after this time. So these inconsistencies just lead to conflicting conclusions regarding basic practices in Islam, and they're going to suggest that the Hadith corpus was subject to human intervention, particularly during a period of significant political and theological turbulence. I want to go back and kind of cover the problem of Sathut, or anomaly, and the singular narrations or the Ahad Hadith. So the status of singular narrations itself, so the Hadith are often categorized as Ahad, or isolated, or mutawatir, mass transmitted. So the former refers to reports that have only had one chain of transmission, making them highly susceptible to errors or intentional alterations. Sahih Muslim includes a number of such hadiths, many of which are problematic due to their singular nature. The lack of multiple independent chains of transmission to support these reports significantly undermines their credibility. The notable example that I gave earlier was Abu Dawud 4449, in which an anomalous addition was later inserted into the narration. This Sathut, an anomalous hadith, has been criticized for singular wording. Again, you can go check out the video I made where I kind of defend Sajjaj in the sense that this has only been graded weak because of the tadlis and kind of more of an emphasis on that, but you can go watch that video. Which cannot be corroborated with other reports. So this flaw further exposes the fragility of the methodology in Sahih Muslim and highlights his reliance on narrations that are more prone to distortion than those with broader and more consistent theological chains. Let's get right into the theological and epistemological implications of the Sahih Muslim critique. I want to start with Hadith and its epistemological inadequacy. So the criticism of Sahih Muslim itself extends beyond textual analysis. So just to give a little background, it extends beyond textual analysis to broader epistemological concerns with Islamic theology. The reliance on Hadith has a foundational source for Islamic law and theology. It's problematic when the integrity of those sources is in question. If scholars and theologians consistently acknowledge the flaws in the Isnad system, the methodological weaknesses in the authentication process, and the contradictory nature of many of the hadiths themselves, it calls into question the legitimacy of using these sources as a foundation for Islamic doctrine and practice. So, Hadith and its epistemological inadequacy, if we're going to go a little deeper into that, the epistemological framework on which Islamic scholarship is built hinges on the notion that hadiths serve as reliable sources of information about the Prophet Muhammad's actions, sayings, and approvals. However, if the hadith corpus is riddled with fabrications, contradictions, and methodological flaws, then the entire foundation of Islamic jurisprudence and theology becomes unstable. The epistemic limitations of Sahih Muslim are going to illustrate that the Islamic scholars cannot consistently rely on these sources without acknowledging their inherent flaws. So we have then the theological implications of hadith fabrication. We have kind of just what I said here was the inherent unreliability All right, I apologize. I was out for a second. I don't know what happened with the stream. I'm gonna go ahead and go back to sharing my screen and just check where I stopped in the live video, and I'll just start from there and cut it. All right, so I think where I stopped was the inherent unreliability of Sahih Muslim. So I think I'm just going to restart from right there, and I'll just cut out the rest. So again, the critical analysis of Sahih Muslim is going to expose deep-rooted issues that call into question its authenticity and and credibility. So, from the selective methodology employed in its compilation to the internal contradictions and the political manipulation that influenced its creation, Sahih Muslim cannot be regarded as a definitive or trustworthy historical record. The reliance on a flawed isnad system, combined with the contradictions within the text itself, renders it a highly reliable source for understanding the life and teachings of Prophet Muhammad. Therefore, scholars and practitioners must reconsider the extent to which Sahih Muslim can be utilized as a foundation for Islamic law and theology. So, my honest conclusion, based on rigorous academic critique, is that Sahih Muslim, like much of the Hadith corpus, is deeply problematic and cannot be treated as a reliable historical source in its current form. And that's really all that I have. I was going to kind of just also share the I'm sorry about that. Share the this comment that I got in the video that I made. It says forever LMAOing, so laughing my a off at the fact that the weakest hadith is more reliable than the entire Bible. So this comparison that he makes between the New Testament, I'll just say New Testament, and the hadith. So this is kind of funny to me, and not only this, but even right now on this stream, let me kind of just show what this guy's saying. So you just said, "Oh, see, are you serious?" Title called Hadith is worse than the Quran. Bro, the Bible is worse than the Hadith. So let me just respond to you, right? So let's have your calls. Let me give you 5 minutes of fame and put you up here. So to kind of just respond to your point, I guess I could do both of you at the same time. I wasn't expecting you to comment, but so to expose the double standards of you Muslims that often apply, uh, you often apply when comparing to the reliability of the New Testament. I'm just going to say New Testament instead of the whole Bible because why not? Kind of just it's off topic, but might as well just go into it. So when you're comparing the reliability of the New Testament to the Hadiths in Islam, it's crucial to highlight several points of inconsistency and contradiction in your epistemological approach. So this will focus on how Muslims generally hold the New Testament to a higher standard of scrutiny and skepticism, while their Hadith, despite their numerous issues, are often accepted uncritically or with inconsistent criteria. I've demonstrated this throughout the entire video. So yeah, I should probably remove your thing now. So here's the epistemological approach to the hadith. So in the Islamic scholarship, the process of hadith verification is involving examining the isnad. I've already explained this. So and the isnad must trace back to the Shahaba or the companions of the Prophet, and the narrators must be deemed reliable based on their memory, integrity, and adherence to orthodoxy. However, despite the seemingly rigorous system, there's still serious issues, and I've already talked about many of them. The selective applications. Scholars like Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim were often selective in their criteria. Contradictions and absurdities. A large number of hadith present theological doctrines, significant or scientific contradictions. Like Satan pee in your ear. Is that something? Or yeah, there's one hadith like that as well. Does Satan sleep in your nose?
We have hadiths about Prophet Muhammad's actions that contradict the Quran or were later proven to be factually inaccurate and are often still considered sahih, even though such issues would disqualify them from any rigorous historical study. So hadiths about Muhammad splitting the moon or his night journey on a mythical creature called Burak, they're taken as valid despite their obvious fantastical elements. Like, do you not see this in your own position? We have fabrication and manipulation, the political climate during the compilation of hadith collections. They contributed to widespread fabrication of hadiths. Many hadiths were created to serve political or sectarian agendas, leading to those inconsistencies in the narrative about Muhammad's life. This We don't have problems like this in the New Testament authentication process. The New Testament has undergone intense scrutiny. The four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were written by multiple independent authors across different regions and generations, each with varying perspectives. The process of textual criticism, all right, this is very important here. It's going to involve a careful comparison of manuscript evidence addressing issues such as these. Multiple attestation. So events in the New Testament, such as the crucifixion and resurrection, are mentioned by multiple independent sources, including the Pauline epistles, which predate the gospel writings. So this provides a stronger foundation for these events, the event's historicity compared to the isolated nature of many hadiths. We also have the textual consistency. So the New Testament manuscripts, they have a remarkable level of consistency across thousands of extant copies. So variants do exist, but they're largely minor and do not affect essential theological points. So Christian scholars have a transparent system of evaluating the authenticity of texts, taking into account early manuscript, linguistic style, and historical context. So by contrast, the Hadith corpus is much less transparent, with the inconsistent data for authenticity and a lack of reliable early manuscripts for many Hadiths. We also have the historical context when it comes to the New Testament. The authors of the Gospels were likely contemporaneous or contemporaries with or close to the events they describe. The early church fathers in their writings support and corroborate the New Testament documents. Additionally, we have external references to early Christian beliefs and practices, such as those in the writings of Josephus, which provide historical verification for the claims that we make. So you Muslims will generally apply like a high standard of skepticism toward the New Testament, and you're like the arguments that are like usually posited are that the Gospels were written centuries after the events of Christ's life and thus are unreliable, or the New Testament accounts are biased since they're written by followers of Jesus who had a theological agenda, or the alteration of these texts over time has led to disparities in the Gospels, making them untrustworthy as historical documents. So many of these criticisms can be applied to the Hadiths as well. So here I'm not trying to make it too quoque. The guy already made a too quoque when he made that comment. So I'm not trying to be fallacious here, but the inconsistency in Muslim treatment, I'm trying to show the double standard. The inconsistency in Muslim treatment of both sources is apparent. Despite the similar time gaps between the events and their written documentation, and despite the fact that hadiths were compiled even later than the New Testament, with many appearing centuries after Muhammad's death, you'll often accept that hadiths are authoritative without even applying the same degree of skepticism that you do to the New Testament. You're going to argue that Quran has been perfectly preserved. This is like, I heard this argument so many times, without error, pointing to the memorizers of the Quran and the unity of its textual tradition. When it comes to the New Testament, you're going to argue that it's riddled with contradictions and alterations. Yet the Quran itself is preserved with several variants. I have a video on the preservation of the Quran, like an hour long video where I go over this. You can watch that if you want like a broader touch. But many variants, right? So in its text, and sometimes even contradictory narrations. So this double standard in applying a high level of certainty to the preservation of the Quran while rejecting the reliability of the New Testament calls into question the consistency and epistemological fairness of such arguments. For example, despite the differing recensions of the Quran, such as the Warsh and the Quran versions, you Muslims will insist on its perfect preservation. Yet you reject the New Testament based on much fewer variants and significant external corroborations. Despite the existence of many contradictions in the Hadiths themselves regarding the Prophet Muhammad's sayings, practices, and even actions, you're going to continue to regard the Hadith corpus as infallible and authoritative. Yet when it comes to the New Testament, even minor discrepancies, or issues in transmission are often highlighted to cast doubt on his credibility. Let's see, Muslim scholars, we have them, we got to deal with them as well. So they're quick to point out that the political influences on the compilation of the New Testament, and they argue that the early Christian groups manipulated the narrative to create a theological orthodoxy. However, the same can be said of the compilation of it. Again, I'm not trying to make a tu quoque here. I'm trying to show the double standard. We have the sectarian influence I talked about earlier. During the compilation of hadiths, various Islamic sects, like the Sunnis and the Shittis, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, they developed differing views on what constituted authentic hadiths. As a result, both sects produced different collections of hadiths that reflected their respective theological biases. We have the political use of the hadith. Like the early Christian church, Islamic rulers also used hadiths to justify their political power, often creating or promoting hadiths that supported their regimen, such as those emphasizing the legitimacy of certain of caliphs or dynasties. So what I'm just trying to say here is that you're making an unfair comparison between the New Testament and the Hadiths. It's not even comparable at all, right? So you're going to impose a rigorous standard of authenticity of the New Testament while accepting the Hadith with far less scrutiny, despite the latter's many flaws. So the double standard is evident in several areas. I'll go ahead and list three. So the epistemological approach to the historical sources is inconsistent. Muslims are far more skeptical to the New Testament's authenticity while accepting the Hadith on the basis of far weaker evidentiary standards. There's also political and theological motives influencing both the compilation of Hadiths and the shaping of the New Testament narratives are ignored or dismissed selectively. So when these double standards are exposed, it becomes clear that your position or the rejection of the New Testament on grounds also applied to the Hadith is both inconsistent and intellectually dishonest. If you want to engage in an honest intellectual discussion, or a more even-handed approach should be applied to both the New Testament and the Hadith corpus, acknowledging their respective flaws and strength without resorting to selective standards of reliability. So that's the answer that I want to give to both the guy who just commented on this stream right now and the comment from my previous video. And that's kind of all that I have for this. I hope that I responded to Beyond That Theology, kind of just expanded, and I want him to just kind of see what to do with this as far as just some general history goes. And yeah, so this is this is the thumbnail that I made for it. It looks really nice. We got all three of them here. But yeah, this is what I wanted to go through. I do need to cut a few parts out of this video because of there was a little problem or a technical issue with the stream. So once the stream itself has ended, I will make sure to just remove that part. So that'll be all for this video, though. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I am going to be starting a series on the incarnation. So let me go ahead and share the screen over to my channel, and we can kind of just go from there. And I'll show you guys with that. And so if you want to watch that, those will be coming out soon. So this is what's streaming now, and then yeah, there's going to be a full series on the Trinity. So an introduction to the Trinity, the Cappadocian Fathers on the Trinity. I'll be going over essence energy distinction and relations, the triune God's role in salvation, and the arguments against the Trinity refuted. So this right here is going to be almost everything that you need to know about the Trinity in a nutshell, how to defend it, how we see it in salvation, essence energy distinction, how we see the real distinction between God's essence and his energies, all the metaphysical concepts of the Trinity and what the Trinity is as a foundation. I will be citing books. I do have hardcover books. I probably will do like a recording stream where I'll probably have my camera on and kind of just show you the books and examine some writers and dissertations. I will go over some stuff by both Dr. Joshua Sichuade and Dr. Bo Branson on the Trinity. The second series I'll be doing will be the incarnation. So, what is the incarnation? How did God become man? Did Christ or the second person of the Trinity, the divine subject, the Son, undergo change? Is Mary the Theotokos, the mother of God? What is theosis? What is deification? What does it mean for man to become God? What does it mean for that? What does it mean to say God became man so that man can become God? What does it mean to say that? And how did God die? We'll be going over voluntary kenosis as written by Paul, and we'll kind of expand on that. So that's the two series that are coming up. 10 videos total, 5 videos for each series. I will be taking a bit more time to read more because I don't want to do a presentation and miss something or leave something out or not know something or teach something without me myself having not read up on it as much as one possibly should. So I do need to read up more before I do these videos. There are books that I have just I've been waiting for to simply because I want to do these presentations with the best amount of knowledge possible and use a lot more citations from patristic sources. So that's all for today. Just stay tuned for that. I appreciate everyone that tunes in and watches these videos. If you'd like to help me out, make sure to subscribe. The like button helps; it gets it out, puts it out to the algorithm. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen. Lord Jesus Christ, and of God, have mercy upon us sinners. I'll see you guys in the next stream. See you all.